Welcome, Professor Hamid. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Alif. Good morning.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Maybe we can start this webinar.
Okay, let me turn on the light. Maybe a little bit, the light is low. Just wait a minute.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's better now.
It's okay, Professor.
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have to start this webinar today. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. All praise to Allah so that we can gather in this webinar tips for crafting scientific research paper in good health, physically, spiritually. Allow me to be the master of ceremony on this webinar. Has been here with us, respectable Dean of Faculty Engineering and Computer Science, Associate Professor Dr. Insinyur Herman Sugoto MBA, respectable Vice Rector of Serut University of Technology, Professor Hamid Hassanpour as our keynote speaker in this webinar, respectable lecturer of Faculty Engineering and Computer Science, Universitas Komputer Indonesia, and all invited guests. It has been a pleasure for our department as the host of this conference. We give our thankfulness for all parties who helped organize this event so we can gather in this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, before starting the event, we would like to express our condolence for what happened to Cianjur. We pray that the victim will be given fortitude and patience in facing this disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, starting the webinar, we are going to sing National Anthem, Indonesia Raya. Attendees are requested to follow. Opening speech by Dean of Faculty Engineering and Computer Science, Associate Professor Dr. Insinyur Haji Herman Sugoto MBA. The time is yours.
Thank you, Pak Reci. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us in this Tips for Crafting Scientific Research Papers webinar. On behalf of the Engineering and Computer Science Faculty, I would like to say thank you to Professor Hamid Hassanpour, Vice Rector of Sahrut University of Technology Iran, for spending your valuable time this morning. And also thank to the Informatic Engineering Head Department, Dr. Irfan, and all lecturers in Informatic Department, and also HIMA who arranged this webinar. For all participants, as we know that Professor Hassanpour is specialized in computer engineering with many publications of scientific papers. He is also the editor-in-chief and editorial board of the 3 reputable journals. I think by sharing Professor Hassanpour knowledge and experience when reviewing the submitted research papers, the participants will gain benefits and a clear perspective on how to prepare and write a good scientific research paper. After this webinar, we hope the participant will have a comprehensive knowledge to write scientific research paper well. Hope you enjoy the webinar, and by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, may I open this webinar. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you for the opening speech for our dean. Ladies and gentlemen, for the smooth running of the webinar, we will have prior recitation to be conducted by Mr. Alif Finandita. The time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Dear participants, let us bow our head for a moment, pray to God Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, so that our webinar today can be precious to all of us. In particular, we will also pray for those who are currently experiencing difficult times due to the earthquake in Cianjur district, West Java. May they always be given patience and strength. Those who are injured may be recovered soon. Those who died can get the best place in the sight of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. I will let display based on the teaching of Islam, and those who are not Muslims, you are pleased to pray according each of your beliefs. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin, hamda yu'afi ni'amahu wa yukafi mazidah, ya Rabbana alhamdu kama yanbaghi li wajhikal karim wa 'azimi sultanik. Allahumma sholli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma inna nas'aluka salamatan fid din wa afiatan fil jasad wa ziyadatan fil ilmi wa barakatan fil rizqi wa tawbatan qabla al-maut wa rahmatan indal maut wa maghfiratan ba'dal maut. Allahumma ighfir lana wa li walidayna wa lil muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat innaka sami'un qaribun mujib ya qadi ya haja. Allah, today we gather here to bring about a webinar of Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science Unicom with the topic of tips for crafting scientific research papers. Allah, make this webinar as a medium of sharing useful ideas, knowledge, and experiences about crafting scientific research papers. May the webinar we organize today benefit our lives, broaden our knowledge, shine our ideas, and lead us to be successful, productive persons. Allah, guide and bless our hearts and our minds with the light of your guidance. Impart supreme wisdom on our activities. Help us to speak our minds clearly. Help us to listen to each other, respect each other, love each other, so that we are equally to these persons. Allah, protect us from unintended temptation, show us the right path, and give us knowledge and strength to perform good things. Equally, show us and make it clear at the bad things, and give us knowledge and strength to avoid it. Allah, you are the one who can fulfill our dua. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar Wassallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wassallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad ala rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Ali Finandita. Ladies and gentlemen, before proceed to the main event, we invite attendees to take a photo together. Taking photo will be assisted by the committee. Maybe we can turn on the camera. First, we have to make say cheese, maybe. 1, 2, 3. Say cheese.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Once again, maybe with freestyle. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The last, maybe we can use our line signs with you. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now proceed to the main event, the webinar session from Professor Hamid Hassan. This session will be chaired by Hanhan Maulana, PhD. I will read his short curriculum vitae. He is currently as the lecturer in Informatic Engineering Department, Universitas Komputer Indonesia. He earned master degree from double degree program in Yongsan, South Korea, and Universitas Komputer Indonesia with master thesis concerning in software engineering. Then he earned doctor degree in Javan Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, which concerning in human-computer interaction, which later become his interest main research. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give us our warmest welcome to Dr. Hanhan Maulana.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ricky, for the time. And good morning, everyone. Before we start the main event, let me read our keynote speaker curriculum vitae. So, Professor Hamid Hassanpour received the bachelor degree in computer engineering from the Iran University of Science and Technology, and then received the master degree in computer engineering from Amir Kabir University of Technology, Tehran, Iran, and then he received the PhD from the Queensland University of Technology, Brisbane, Australia. He is currently a full professor at the Faculty of Computer Engineering, Shahrud University of Technology, Iran. His research interests including data mining, biomedical signal processing, time frequency signal processing and analysis, text syntax analysis, image processing, artificial neural network, and so on. He has also been awarded of Distinguished Professor of the Year in the Research Department of Computer and IT, Shahrud University of Technology in 2009 and 2019. Distinguished as the celebrated research scientist in the province of Mazandaran, Iran in 2008, and Distinguished Professor of the Year in the Research Department of Computer Electronical Engineering, Babol University of Technology, Iran in 2006 until 2007. And then related to this webinar topic, Professor Hamid Hassanpour has so many experience as editorial board of a good reputation journal in Iran. And good morning, Professor.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, I know it's early morning in Iran, so thank you so much, Professor, for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be with the Unicom again. It's really my best time to be with you again.
Yes. Professor, as information to you that the participant we almost have 400 participants for today webinar.
Okay.
So,
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So, Professor, time is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Thank you, Dr.
Salam.
Hanhan, and also thank you to Professor Herman Sögutu for the time again to have another opportunity to be this Unicom, and also thank you to the rector of Unicom for the great hospitality or the other time I was in Bandung. Let me share my video. Can you see my video?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Seems that host disabled participant screen sharing. So
Oh.
can you fix it, please?
Yes, we try to fix it, Professor. So,
Okay.
Maybe you can try again, Professor.
Okay.
okay,
I think you
Professor,
can
we
see it
can
now.
see your slide now.
Okay. Okay. And again, click on the recording on, so you can record the screen. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Professor.
Okay. Good morning again from here, Shahrud University of Technology. It's early morning in Shahrud. It's about 8 degrees Celsius, very nice weather here. And we are in our autumn, the 3rd month of the autumn. I hope you can be here, the Shahrud University of Technology, in near future. And we can share our time with you all. Okay. Let's start our workshop presentations, title of Tips for Crafting Scientific Research Paper. The outlines of the presentation includes a brief principal guidelines to write a paper, then followed by writing a paper. After that, I will express some general points to write a scientific paper. And also in this next section, practical tips for scientific writing. And finally, communication with the journal editor. Sometimes researchers avoid how to communicate with journal editor. Section 1, principal guidelines. We know that writing plays an important role in science. And the quality of writing can reflect the reader about the quality of the research. We should be aware that scientific papers follow a standard structure to help readers to quickly obtain the main objective and results of the paper. And then, if interested, to examine the supporting evidence and try perhaps to reproduce the results. And the writer of the paper should remember that he or she has plenty of time to prepare the work, but reviewers and researchers often have no more than hours and may have even rather less time. So be careful in writing your manuscript. If a paper is important, yes.
Sorry for interrupt, Professor. Your slide
No.
didn't moving, so maybe
It doesn't.
Yes, we just see the first slide.
Oh. Then what's wrong?
Maybe you should share, not extend the screen, but share
Okay.
all. Yes.
And now, can you see the
Yes.
slide?
We can see the slide moving.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. So perhaps you are in slide 4, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So let me start from the later outline in slide 4. So as I said, the writer of a paper should remember that he or she has plenty of time to prepare the work, but the reviewer and the researcher have a limited amount of time to read the paper. So try to be very structured and concise material in the paper. If a paper is important in science, it will be cited by others. Sometimes you may see a paper published maybe 10 years ago, but no citation. So that means that not the paper is scientifically important. Those who do write well just learn through experience. So here I can say that there are some elementary steps that every researcher can follow to have a competent paper and attract other researchers to use their paper. Now, let me talk about general organization of a paper. Perhaps everybody knows about the general organization of a paper. Just to remind you, we know that paper include title, abstract, introduction, literature review, methods, results and discussion, conclusion, and bibliography. But some paper may have a little bit different. For example, results may not be followed by discussion, or the discussion just the title is just merely about results, and also sometimes use different heading for different section. Okay, so just I'm saying general organization of a paper. Then after that, I will explain all of the items I listed here. Now, about choosing title of a paper, which is more important. The first thing that a reader will see is a title. So try to be very attractive and to be concise. And don't use extra words. If don't use any word that there is no point for the word in the title. So excessively long words, when shorter ones will do. So try to use just a concise title. And it is preferred that the title has no abbreviation and formula, specifically abbreviation developed or abbreviation generated in that paper, in your paper. So the author may not know about the abbreviation. So if you put an abbreviation generated in that paper, who knows about the abbreviation? So try not to use abbreviation and formula in title. And as I said, title is the first thing that a reader will see. So try to be attractive, and it can indicate the novelty of the paper, and also it can indicate any difference compared to other paper in the field. So we should ask ourselves whether our title is suitable enough by considering these items listed here. So the next part of a paper is abstract. Every paper has an abstract. An abstract is a shortened version of the paper. An abstract should contain all information necessary for the reader to decide or to determine what the objective of the study were and how the study was done, what results were obtained, and the significance of the results. So try to consider these items in writing a scientific paper. And just remember that often readers only read the abstract. Then abstract which allows the reader to judge whether or not the paper is of relevance to them or not. So the abstract should be written very carefully to have the greatest impact in the science. Sometimes people may ask themselves when we should start writing abstract of the paper. Let me say that, write a draft of the abstract first. I mean, once you choose the title, I mean, some keywords of the title, start writing your abstract, the first draft of the abstract. Then finalize the abstract at the end. Sometimes you may finish writing your paper and then you want to think about the abstract. So that abstract will not be more attractive to the readers. So here is the reason that I recommend to write a first draft of the abstract at the beginning. And remember that followings are not usually appear in an abstract. Don't be worried about minor details of your method in the abstract. A description of the structure of the paper should not be appeared in the abstract. And also mathematics and citations are not usually appearing in the abstract. Very rarely you can find a paper that use mathematics and citations in the abstract. So try not to use them. And abstract is typically a single paragraph of about 50 to 200 words, depending to the journal, sometimes less or sometimes less than 200 or sometimes a little bit more. And many abstracts follow a 5-element organization as described here. An abstract includes a general statement introducing the broad research area of the particular topic being investigated. An explanation of the specific problem about difficulty, obstacle, challenge that to be solved in the manuscript. A review of existing or a standard solution to this problem and their limitations. an outline of the proposed new solution, and a summary of how the solution was evaluated and what the outcomes of the research were. So you may say, I should consider all these items, all these points in one paragraph. Yeah, that's the reason that it's very tricky to provide a suitable abstract for a paper. And the more specific an abstract is, the more interesting it is likely to be to the reader. The next section of a paper is introduction. We can say that introduction is an extended version of the abstract, which describes the paper's topic, the problem being studied, motivation, and why the problem is interesting, and why the approach taken is a good one, references to key papers in the literature, and the approach to the solution, the scope and limitation of the solution, and also significant outcomes should be briefly described in the introduction. Remember that try to cite relevant literature in the introduction, and also a specialized terminology, complex mathematics, and in-depth discussion on the literature are not shown in the abstract. Just as I said, these items are shown elsewhere in the manuscript. We will talk about next sections. So the reader should also understand the contribution of the paper, the core idea, and also try to organize the abstract from more general information to a specific information, and limit the introduction to studies that relate directly to the present study, and also identify gaps in knowledge and emphasize your specific contribution to the topic. The last sentences of the introduction should be a statement of objectives and a statement of hypothesis. Actually, this will be a good transition to the next section. And perhaps you have seen that in some paper, the introduction is ended with a brief outline of the paper, saying that the next section is such and this section 3 is such. So indeed, in that way, the writer of the paper tried to provide the perspective of the paper to the readers. And try to provide enough detail to the reader such that the reader can decide whether or not they need to read the paper further. So sometimes the first item that you see from the paper is the title, then from the abstract, you decide whether the paper is related to your research or not. And sometimes you may find that the topic is related to your subject, but when you read the introduction, you will find that the paper is not suitable to your study or to your research. So try to provide enough detail to allow readers to make decision whether or not they need to read the paper further. Okay. The next section, the next item of the paper is literature review, which is important part, and another important part of the paper. A structured analysis of a body of literature, and may also cover work from several separate areas of research. And remember that it's not simply a list of papers. Some people in the literature review section just list a paper without any organization. Be sure that papers used in literature review are grouped by topic, and also critically discussed in a way that allows the reader to understand their contribution to the field, and also, of course, the limitation. Otherwise, there is no point to list papers in your literature review. You should find that what's the limitation and what's the novelty on that paper, and then how you have a new point of view in your research, and what's the gap. So this is the reason that we are saying that in literature review papers should be grouped by topic. Then the reader can have a clear idea about the literature review. And it is usually expected to only refer papers that have been referred and published in reputable venue. Try not to cite any paper. Once you are citing a paper, you are making a credit to that paper. News articles, science magazines, Wikipedia pages are rarely worth for citing, but they may help you to reproduce to reputable work. I mean, they may help you to start knowledging you about the topic, but we recommend you not to cite unreputable paper, so they can make your paper to be valuable to others. But once you read a paper once you cite a paper, it doesn't mean that you could understand every line of the paper. So so as I said, there is no need to understand every line of the paper if you want to make a decision to write to cite the paper. And so here we recommend that try to review a state-of-the-art papers, not out-of-date paper or textbook, especially in the literature review. The next items of the paper is methods or material, which provide all the methodology details necessary for another scientist to duplicate your work, and also provide necessary background and terminology, explain the chain of reasoning, and also sometimes you may not provide the background and terminology, just you need to refer to the resource. And in the method, try to clearly explain the method, not just a list of instructions in a cookbook. And once you are trying to explain the method, it should be straightforward. So there must be a provision for the method, for developed method use. And in explaining the method, sometimes you can use example to more clarify the method. Remember that sometimes a statement can be made clear by using mathematics to express the idea, because mathematics is a scientific language There's no ambiguity. It's concise, and we can say that linguistic independent. If we write here 2a plus b, so everybody wants to see the expression, you see the formula, you can understand what does it mean. So this is the reason that we recommend that try to make the method more clear by using mathematics. And also it will be very straightforward for someone else to follow the method. And also, you don't need to make excessive claims about your own work. Don't say something like this: our method is an ideal solution to this problem, or something like this: our work is remarkable, our work is the best in the world. So you don't need to claim such a statement in your method. So these are not acceptable. Just you need to now to explain that your method is well enough, is more appropriate to the other one in the existing literature. So there is no need to have excessive claims about your paper, about your work. And about the results, experiments are required to convince the capability of the method. So in the results section, you provide some experiments and then try to convince using the experiment that your method is capable for doing such and such. And also the experiments must be adequate to conclude the efficiency of the method. Sometimes just one simple experiment or a narrow amount of data may not be enough to conclude the efficiency of the method. Use the text of the paper to state the results of your study. Then refer to the reader to a table or figure. Just sometimes people may put table and figure in the results. So paper, figure and table cannot talk with the reader by themselves. So this is the responsibility of the writer that use text in the manuscript to state the results and then refer the reader to the table and figure. And make sure that every single table and figure in your manuscript is cited in your manuscript. Description of experiment should permit reproduction and verification. So you should provide enough knowledge in your method and also details in your results to describe the experiment so that the reader can reproduce or verify your results. Otherwise, you cannot assure that the results is working or the method is working. So the experiment should convince the reader that the method is working, and also the results can satisfy the reader. And also try to compare your method with the recently developed method. Some people may write a paper, very good one, but there is no comparison with other existing method in literature. Then how we can be sure that your method is better than other? If other method in the literature is better than yours, then what's the point in reading your paper? So that is your responsibility to compare your method with the recently developed method. So in comparing the method, you can use you can share the data, or you can apply both of the method on a common data, then you can compare. For the data, readers need to know how the data was gathered or provided. Sometimes the data might be provided by the writer or someone, sometimes the data might be freely available from the website. So in this case, we need to provide background on issues and limitation of data. Without knowledge about the background of the data, then how we can expect that, how we can expect about the outcomes from the results. And another section of the paper is discussion. Sometimes discussion may have another a new subsection, or sometimes at the end of the experiment you have 2 or 3 paragraphs about discussion. You can explain about the results, about what the results mean or why they differ from what other workers have found. You should interpret your results and compare with other publisher results. And also relate your discussion back to the objective you raised in the introduction section. So perhaps in the introduction section, you had some claim that your method is better than other, or you explain about the novelty. Then in the discussion, you should back to the objective you raised in the introduction section. And the last section of paper is conclusion. Conclusion or summary of paper is used to draw together the topics discussed in the paper. This section should include a concise statement of the paper's important results and their significance. And the conclusion section is an appropriate place to state or restate any limitation of the work, shortcoming in the experiment, problem that the theory does not address, and so on. So try to clarify about the limitations or the outcomes of your method in the conclusion. And also you may suggest future direction for other researchers, because you have some experience from the paper. At least you may have several months or sometimes several years in developing the method, so you can have very good suggestion for other researchers to follow or to continue the research. And the other section after this, the conclusion, which is always used in paper, is bibliography. A bibliography is a complete list of theses, papers, books, reports that you cite in the manuscript. In providing the bibliography, you must follow the journal instruction. Every journal has instruction to the author in providing the bibliography. And if available, try to provide DOI of the manuscript or the source. And also examine your reference list to make certain that each work listed there is accurately referred to in the text, table or legends. So sometimes people may list some resources in the bibliography, but make mistake, and they don't cite the references in the manuscript. So this is wrong. If the manuscript was not cited in the manuscript, if the reference is not cited in the manuscript, then what's the point to providing the reference in the bibliography? So remove them and check your paper to make sure that you have referred to the references. Write for permission to reproduce any previously published table even if the paper is from yours in another journal. So as I said, you have to have permission from the publisher if you want to reproduce any previously published table, illustration, other material that will be used in your manuscript, even if those are from your published paper. So again, as I said, make sure citations in text match references. Sometimes you use the references, but the citation may not be true. So wrong citation. So, and sometimes a paper may have an appendix to provide details of proof or experimental result, listing of computer program, and so on. And the purpose of providing appendix is to hold bulky material that would otherwise interfere with the narrative flow of the paper, or material that interested readers do not need to refer to. So in somehow we try to put the appendix to help the reader to follow the paper. So it was the first section. In the next section, we talk about writing a paper. To write a paper, a problem statement is the first thing to think. Sometimes, we develop a technique and we are not sure how to write a paper. Here is the guidelines to write your paper. So, as I said here, a problem statement is the first thing to think. Then a review of previously solution and the drawbacks. Once we say previously solution, I mean already existing paper, or it can be conference or journal paper. And then you can consider the new solution, and finally a demonstration that the solution improves on its predecessors. Once you have a topic for your research, try to find a good paper from a journal and use it as a model for your own writing. It can be very beneficial for a novice writer. Some papers are very good in terms of organization, in terms of straightforward writing. So we can try to find those papers in our subject, in our field, and try to use it as a model for our own writing. And if you find a suitable paper, look for those cited this paper. So sometimes you are not sure how to find suitable paper, related paper in your research area. So as I said, try to find one or two or few, and then try to find other papers cited this paper so they can show the roadmap. So of course, every paper may not be suitable for your research. The quality of paper can be reflected by the number of citations and also its bibliography. So this is the reason that I recommend you to be careful about your bibliography, because bibliography can reflect the quality of the paper. Try to be an effective reader by giving each paper neither more nor less time that it deserves. So if you provide a paper, if you found a paper suitable to your research, you don't need to follow all the lines. Sometimes the abstract is enough. Sometimes some section of the paper is enough to give you a clue. So the first time you read a paper, skim through it to identify the extent to which it is relevant. Only read it thoroughly if there is likely to be value in doing so. So you don't need to thoroughly read the paper. Always be aware of details that may be even wrong or grab. Sometimes we are trying to understand the paper and trying to reproduce, but be aware that sometimes the details may be wrong. So this is the reason that we are saying that the first time you read a paper, skim through it to identify the extent to which it is relevant to your research. And a key aim of reading a paper is to develop critical thinking skill. If you want to use the paper enough, then try to have critical thinking. Write a first draft in the following order. So now suppose you decide to write a paper. So here is the way to write the first draft. Initially, think about the title, abstract, method, tables and figures, explaining the results. So here, once I say about the title later might be modified, or the abstract might be modified, of course. So this is the reason that say that this is the first draft. So the first draft of paper must follow this order. This can help you to provide the paper as quickly as possible. Then start with an outline of the paper, stretching out what's going to go in the introduction and also the next. Use subtopics and subject sentence to build your outline. Then write a rough draft that includes the main ideas and flesh out your topical sentence into paragraph in rough form. And don't worry about detail like exact references, full sentences in providing your first draft. Once you have finished your rough draft, take a break before rereading your paper. So try not to finish your paper in one day. Once you finish the first draft, take a break for a while, even for a few days. Then add the details. And once you finish the first draft, ask a friend or colleague to read your draft. Sometimes once you finish a paper, you may not be aware that some area of the paper is ambiguous. Some parts of the paper is not complete. The paragraph is not straightforward. Then if your friend or colleague read the paper, can give you the advice, can give you the comment to provide the paper to be more straightforward. And if your friend or colleague provide you comment, try revising the manuscript following the comments. If the comments are reasonable, don't fight with your friend or colleague about the comment provided by them. They are trying to help you to improve your manuscript to the reader. And next section is general points in writing scientific paper. General points, the most important issue for this section is the style of writing. The style of writing, talking about the manner of expression. The style is not about correct use of grammar, but about how well you communicate with likely readers. Science writing must be its nature by plain and straightforward, so that other people can easily understand your idea. And text might be tough. The length of paper should reflect its content. It is admirable to use only as many words as are required. And every sentence in your writing, in your manuscript should be necessary. Don't use unnecessary statements. And remember that if someone dislikes something you have written, that it is the readers you need to please, not yourself. So you not be happy about the paper. Who should be happy? The reader. If the reader is happy about your paper, then you're lucky you can be happy about your paper. A well-structured write-up accommodates this behavior by having important statement as near the beginning as possible. So try to say about important items, about important issues about your paper as early as possible, not postpone them at the end, because sometimes the reader may not have time to follow all the details. Try to see the beginning paragraph of the section. So the beginning paragraph of the section should have the more important clue about that section. When we first see a paper, impression form in a minute or two, influenced by layout, readability, and so on. So the layout of our paper is very important to initially decide about the paper. Sometimes once in your initial seeing the paper, if you decide that the paper is not well enough, then it is very hard to change your idea. This is the reason that we are saying that impressions form in a minute or two, influenced by layout, affect the readability on the paper. So be careful about the layout of your paper. And some papers seems reasonable in parts, but the parts don't belong in the same document. It means that you just provide some material from other resources and then assemble them in a paper, in a document. So this is not good at all. In many papers, some of the references are to previously publication by the same author. There's no problem. The author's credential to the field. But I recommend only refer to your own paper in the field if the paper is closely related to topic. So if you have a related topic in the manuscript you are writing, so try to cite them. Don't worry about the self-citation. This is, as I said, credential to the author. The reviewer can trust that the paper is well enough. Once an experienced writer trying to write the paper. Don't cite to support common knowledge in the field. So sometimes people try to cite unnecessary knowledge, unnecessary material in the manuscript. So be careful about citing to support your manuscript. References that are discussed should not be anonymous. This is an important issue. Sometimes people say other work has used an approach in. So other work, what's the work? Say, for example, you can name the author. So the first one is not recommended, but the second and the third one is more appropriate in your writing, depending on the style of the journal. So try, refer to the name, put the name of the author in your statement. Researchers often initially read the title, figures, and table to decide the relevance of the paper. So what does that mean? Once we look at the paper only from the title, figures, and table, it should be clear enough to decide whether the paper is relevant to your subject, is relevant to the area that you are trying to do the research. So if these are important, try to provide a straightforward and complete caption for the figures and table. So this is the reason that we recommend here that figures and tables should be fairly self-contained, provide an appropriate caption. Your interpretation and understanding of results can be as important as the results themselves. So sometimes people may just put a table and a figure, no explanation. So what's the point? The reader may not understand your key idea. So try to do your interpretation and understanding of the results. When describing the outcomes of an experiment, don't just compile dry list of figures or a sequence of graphs. And you must refer the text to each figure or table in your paper. Sometimes people may use figure or table, but no referring to that figure or table. And also make sure that the first referencing in the order of their appearance. Examine your text, table, and legend to make certain that each reference site is accurately represented in the reference list. And remember that putting too much in one paper makes it diffuse and less compelling than if it's focused. Try not to use a long statement. If you use a long statement, it will be difficult to convey the objective. And sometimes we may not be native, the language may not be our native language. So we can have more power in writing a shorter statement than writing a long statement. And also be consistent throughout the manuscript in terms of style of writing, citation, and different things. And sometimes people may use, words, the words or sequence of words appear in different order in the manuscript. This is wrong. So try to be consistent throughout the manuscript. The next section talks about practical tips for scientific writing. Paragraphs are the building block of papers. Each paragraph is related to a single topic. Don't put various topics in a single paragraph. And the connection between one paragraph and the text should be obvious. And in each paragraph, in each section, the first paragraph must be intelligible to any likely reader, so that readers who don't understand the details of your paper are still able to appreciate your results and the importance of your work. Terminology, variable abbreviation, and acronyms should be defined or explained the first time they are used. This is another important issue that sometimes people may not follow. So try to define them as at the first time they are used. The use of I in place of we in paper with only one is uncommon. One author is uncommon. In technical writing, it is usual to capitalize names such as theorem, figure, section. So when you say theorem 1, figure 4, section 2, so once you are referring to these names, they should be capitalized. And also remember that mathematics is usually presented in italics to distinguish it from other texts. For example, in the expression of length n, so here you can see n is italic. It is clear that n is a variable of some kind. Mathematics should not be used at the start of a sentence. The same rule applies to digits. Sentence should begin with a word. not a digit. So here you can see 7 of the rounds were successful, but 46 failed. This is wrong. But the next one is better. 7 of, sometimes we have to write a digit at the beginning. So if you have to write a number at the beginning, so try to write not a digit, I mean using spell it. The better way is using this way. There were 7 successful runs and 46 failures. So this is wrong, the first one. The second one is not preferred, and the best one is the third one. Large numbers should be written out in digits such as 1401 or 23, and that. Some numbers or round numbers should be spelled out, 1 rather than 1, and 100 or 100 rather than 100. Or here you can see the method requires 2 passes. Don't use this. Say the method requires 2 passes. So try to spell. And don't mix modes. There were between 4 and 32 processor in each machine. So don't use this. Instead, use 4 and 32 as I see right here. In science, writing most text is in past or present tense. Present tense is used for eternal truths or facts and quoting previously published work. When there is describing your own study, refer to work in past tense. Example, we tested a new antibiotic for strep throat. And section 5 talk about communication with the journal editor. When you decide to submit a paper to journal, some journal ask the author to provide a cover letter. So here is an example of cover letter. So you write, dear professor, please find enclosed our manuscript. So put the title of the manuscript and then explain a little bit about the paper and the findings, and also explain why the paper is interesting to the readers and why the paper is related to the journal. So it's a sample letter to write as a cover letter to the editor. So once you submit the papers, so perhaps you will have responding to the editor once you have received any feedback, say the paper was accepted or revisions or something like that. So once the paper was accepted, you need no further action, except for the last stage before publication, you might be asked for proofread. Sometimes your paper is revised and you receive minor revision, which means the paper is technically accepted, just a minor revision is requested. Then once you are reviewing the manuscript, you must provide a covering letter along the revised version. So in covering the letter, consider the suggestion carefully. If you agree that they will improve the paper, so you don't have to apply all the comments provided for your paper. Only apply those you agree with them. And if you don't agree, explain why you are not agree with the comment. And also in your covering letter, thank the editor and referee for their help and include a list of substantial changes that you made in response to the suggestion. And if you had a major revision, revise the paper following the reviewer's comment. And if you intend not to accept a comment, you must clarify the reason So you are not allowed to leave the comment. You have to apply the comment, except you have a reason for not accepting reason. So you must discuss about the reason for not applying. And even if you applied, you have to explain how you applied and where the revision was applied in the paper. So highlight the modified area in the revision. This is very important to have the paper, this major revision decision to be accepted by the editor. So the referee spends several hours to read the paper and provide the comment. So once you revise the paper, help the reviewer to read the revision as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the reviewer has to start all the throughout the paper, all the statement in the paper. So once you revise a paper, highlight the revised area. And also, you have to provide a rebuttal letter. And in providing the rebuttal letter, remember that the reviewer is always right, whether they are or not. So be polite in providing the rebuttal letter. So if you receive a rejection decision, you may send it to another journal if the paper was out of the scope of the journal. I mean, if the reason of rejection was out of the scope of the journal, so you can send to another journal. But if the manuscript was rejected because of technical point of view, there is no point to submit the paper without revision to another paper. So revise the paper and submit the revised version to the same or a new one. So for resubmitting a rejected, an already rejected paper, there is no need for a rebuttal letter because it is considered as a new manuscript, even if you send it to the same journal. And sometimes people may be receiving rejection, maybe disappointing. So you may send a contesting letter if, only if, you honestly think that the editor and the referee have made a superficial wrong judgment. In this case, write a polite letter explaining as briefly as possible why you think that the editor should reconsider his decision. That's it. I hope that the tips provided here can help you to provide a good quality paper. So I will be happy if everybody has any question about the presentation. Again, thank you for your attention. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for very interesting topic, Professor. So I hope after this webinar, of course, we can write the better scientific papers. And for the audience, please, if you have a question, you can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom, and then or you can write the question on the chat. Please, if anyone have a question for the Professor Hamid. Yes, we have one question, Professor, from Mr. Irawan Aprianto. Mr. Irawan, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hanhan. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Hamid.
Waalaikumsalam, Mr. Irwan.
Prof, I have two questions about how to create a manuscript. The first is how much literature review is considered sufficient for a manuscript for an international journal? Is the first, and the second is, what if our paper, our manuscript, contain a proposed conceptual model, how do we show improvement from the previous research, Prof? Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Mr. Han.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for your thank you for your question.
And
Good questions, Mr. Irwan.
you will answer now, or you we
It's
will
up to
wait
you.
for-
It's up to you.
Okay, I think directly answer is okay. Professor,
Okay.
please.
I think the question is very good. So how much literature is enough? So try to review the literature, not at the beginning. So try to review the literature to the most recently published ones. So it is depend to the page limitation of the journal. So sometimes if you want to follow all the literature, the literature review section would be a large part of the paper. So there must be a well organization, a well comparison. I mean, a well organized. So maybe 10 or 15% of the manuscript be dedicated to literature review. So the important issue is trying to provide the topic, I mean, to group the topics or subgroup the topics, and then for each subtopics, try to provide some literature review. And the important issue is that review the literature to the recently published papers. Okay, this is very important. Sometimes, you know, people may review the literature but don't consider recently published paper. That means that the writer of the paper is not aware of the recently published one. So, and the other important issue was that he's saying that we already published a paper and we try to provide a new version of that paper. So one important issue is that you are not allowed to reproduce table and results or a statement from already published paper. Okay, this is an important issue. The other issue is that try, you may now extend the paper. Say the paper was published in a conference. So in the conference, you have a limited, you are allowed to write the paper in a limited number of pages, 4, 5, or 6 pages. So there's a limitation. But here you have enough space to explain and to go to deep to provide a good literature review. So there is no problem if you want to extend on already published paper in a conference. So, but it doesn't make sense that to extend an already published paper in a journal. It doesn't make sense that. But it usually happens to extend a conference paper already published. It's very okay. There's no problem. Is it okay? Everything is clear, Mr. Irwan? Okay, Alhamdulillah. Next question, please. Yes, Mr. Anhan.
Okay. For the audience, there is next question. Okay. If not, maybe I have some question, Professor,
Yes.
for me.
Yes, please.
You mentioned about the out of date reference, right? In first part of the presentation.
Yeah.
Regarding the use and reference in your mention, there is out of date, but sometimes we can only find the original theory in book where write on 20 or 30 years ago. Is that okay for including to the paper?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Anhan. No, I'm not saying that we are not allowed to refer to a resource which is very old. So that's okay.
Yes,
but I'm saying that if there's other recently published paper in the field that you can refer, then why not referring to the recently published one? Okay. And sometimes you may not be aware that other people work in this area. So in this case, we are saying that you have to be careful about choosing the references. Okay. And
okay,
yeah,
from
yes,
the
yes.
audience.
Just to let the audience to provide the question, I can
Yes,
explain
yes,
another
yes,
issue that has not been covered in the presentation. I want to recommend all of you to be a reviewer for a conference or for a journal. Why?
Okay, Professor,
why?
I have one question here from Yongki.
Okay.
From Mr.
Okay,
Yongki,
it's my
yes.
pleasure. Yes, yes.
The
Mr.
question
Yongki.
is, have you ever conduct a systematic literature review using Prisma method? So if you ever conduct a systematic literature, could you share with us like that? So that's the question.
Can you please re-explain the question? Sorry.
So have you ever conduct a systematic literature review using Prisma method?
Yeah. So you can since you are from different field of areas, some of them maybe in computer engineering, some of them in electrical engineering or other field.
Yes.
If the audience were in a specified in one field, then I could provide you some example of systematic review. Okay. Because so if I provide an example in a say in computer engineering, my field, so some people may not understand the review. Okay. So yeah, there are plenty of examples in systematic review. So there are different ways to review literature, but the important thing is that try to put them in a separate cluster, or to put them in a separate groups. So if you could provide a number of references for your research and you want to provide them in the literature review, so there should be an order in providing the literature review. Say, what are these important? You may say that the literature review can be classified in 3 groups or in 4 groups. Then for each group, you can describe the details and also their limitation, their importance. So this is the way. Any other question?
Okay. Any other question maybe? And okay. Okay. Oh, there is one question from I know the one that raised the hand, please.
Oh, excuse me, Professor.
Yes, please.
I want to ask, there is some cases when I tried to find a paper for reference and I didn't found any better ones, like for the reference, like but this paper, the only one I can found, it doesn't have complete details or info for the citation. Like, for example, it doesn't have the years published, or it doesn't have the number of volume, or even the names of the journal. Is it still acceptable to use that paper for reference?
Yeah, so there is no problem. So as I said in my presentation, if sometimes people have difficulty to find enough number of resources for their research, so in this case, I recommend to find using the keywords 1, 2, or 3 most suitable papers in the field, which is straightforward. Then try to find other paper cited those selected paper by yours. Okay, so that means that this way, through this way, you can find the map, you can find the road. So at the beginning, you may have 1 or 2 papers, suitable paper in the field. Then, as I mentioned, try to find other paper in the field that cited these 2 papers. Again, you can look for other paper that cited the next paper. So in this way, you can find a large number of references for your research. So it was enough, the explanation was enough, or there is any other question? Mr.
It's enough, Professor. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dafa, to give us a question. And then from other audience, maybe there is another question, please.
Can I ask question, Mr. Hanhan?
Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. Richie, please.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Most of the participant in here is student, professor. Most of the paper they see in journal is always put the how to create in software engineering. They put like architecture system, they put like UML or put another mock-up system. Is it really good paper if they publish it in the journal?
Yeah, some journal accept such a paper. No, there is no problem if you explain the algorithm or the method in a paper. So depending the type of journal, they may accept such a manuscript. So if you look for a journal, some journal try to concentrate on such a papers. So depends on the audience of the journal. Okay, so there is no problem.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
You're welcome.
Okay, another question. Oh, from Mr. Alif, please.
Okay, Professor, I have a question. Is there any minimum number or limitation of the papers that can we use as a reference in our papers? Minimum number of papers. Yeah. Thank you.
So I cannot say that the minimum number is 5 or 4 or 5, so something like this.
Yeah.
But usually in a journal paper, the number of reference is more than 10.
Okay.
And if the paper is a review paper, so sometimes you may review this. Sometimes you may write a paper, just a review paper. I mean, there is no novel technique in the paper, just trying to read other paper and to criticize them and collect their idea in a single paper, which are very important. So for review paper, usually the number of reference is above 40. But for other scientific paper, which are describing a new method, the number of references is normally between 10 and 20. But it is okay if it want to be less or a little bit more, but normally between 10 and 20.
How about proportion about paper or journal and books, textbooks or reference books? How many presentation?
So, yeah. Usually, try to refer. So it is once as a journal editor, once I read a paper, I need to initially evaluate the quality of the paper from the title, from the abstract, and from the bibliography.
Yeah.
So sometimes in the bibliography, the author trying to use very not related references. So this is very bad if the references are not related to the subject. Okay, then try to use most of your references to be from journal, and then from conferences, and also then the next rank is dedicated to textbook, and finally the thesis. Okay, so journals, reputable journal, reputable conferences, the next stage, the next level, and the third level is textbook. So in a bibliography, you may have one or two textbook, and also you may have one or two thesis, and sometimes even you may not refer to any thesis or may not refer to any textbook. So, but you have to refer to some paper from journal or from conference, but make sure that the conference or journal are reputable. And the other issue is that if the paper was not referred, then try not to cite those references, like those from archives. Okay, so try not to cite those, except those from archives that have been cited for a large number of citations. We said large number of citation. So if it has a large number of citation in a short period of time, that means that it can be okay for you to cite them. And even you are trying to cite references from archive, I mean from unreferred manuscript, try to use only few of them, not a large number of unreferred manuscript in your bibliography. Say 2, 3, or even less. Because the bibliography, if they are related to your subject, can value your manuscript.
Okay, Professor, thank you for the answer.
My pleasure.
Okay, Professor, we have one question in the chat. So the question is come from, again, Mr. Irawan Aprianto. And the question is, how do we avoid predatory journal? So
how do we find what journal?
Predatory journal.
Avoid.
Avoid predatory journal.
To find the journal, so for the paper that you have written, so there is a keywords for your paper. So from the keywords, you can search the publisher site, say for example, Scopus or IEEE from the publisher site. And then from the keyword, you can find the suitable journal. And sometimes once you submit a paper, you should not be worried about the impact factor. Sometimes people say, oh, I want to submit a paper to Q1. The paper is Q1 ranking. Don't worry about them, because the rank of the paper might be Q1 right now, but there is no guarantee that once your paper was accepted, the journal can maintain the ranking. So the ranking may be less, or sometimes even maybe more. So don't worry about the ranking. So just make sure that the journal is a qualified journal from the editorial board, and also from the periodicity of publishing of the paper, and also from the scope of the journal. So you as a writer value the journal. So as I said, if you want to find a suitable journal for the manuscript, so at the beginning you try to use keywords from your manuscript, then from the publisher page, look for a appropriate journal using the keyword, and then from the journal website, try to see the scope of the journal. So if the scope of the journal is related to your subject, then feel free to submit the journal, to submit the paper. Yeah.
Okay. How about it, Mr. Irawana Pranto? Is enough?
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank
Professor.
you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Professor, another question is come from Shigeharu Ono. Sometimes we not always can get good result in our research. What should we do to increase the acceptance possibility to journal, even if we get such a result?
Okay. Let me say, sometimes you have good results, but there is no guarantee that if the results is good, the paper would be very good or good enough. To depend to the style of writing. So this is the reason that I put a section about tips for writing scientific papers. So we cannot, as I said, we cannot guarantee that if the results of the research is good, then the paper would be good. So there is no guarantee. Depends the style of writing. And now the other issue is that sometimes the result is not good, but it is comparable to the existing method in the literature, so that's okay. You see the difference? So as I said, result is not good enough, but the results can encourage other researchers to the field. So in this case, that depends to the style of writing, the capability of the author, how to write, how to absorb other reader, and also how to absorb the attention of the referees about their manuscript. So again, a style of writing is very important. Sometimes, you may find a paper in a high quality of journal, but when you read the paper, there's nothing very important in that manuscript. Then you may wonder how the manuscript can be accepted. Never a manuscript is accepted by a chance. I'm not saying that there is no chance in the paper to be accepted. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that the paper is not accepted by a mistake of the editor or the referee. So that depends the quality of the paper. So sometimes the paper may not be technical, may not be, scientifically good enough, but the style of writing is very straightforward and it can absorb the referee and also the editor. So again, the important issue in writing a paper is the style of writing, how the paper is comprehensive, how the paper is straightforward to the reader of the journal. Okay. As you see, sometimes my students finish and their method. Say my student may finish the method or they finish the thesis, then try to write a paper. At the beginning, they may ask me, what's the target of the journal, what journal we are supposed to submit. I tell them that we cannot make decision at the beginning. We can make decision once we finalize the paper. So the finalized paper can indicate which journal is suitable to that technique, to that manuscript. Okay.
Okay. How about it, Ono-san? Is enough?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you for answering the question.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay. Maybe from another audience, we still have around 5 minutes, so we can ask maybe one last question for Professor.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, if not, okay. Another question?
Yeah.
Maybe no more question, Professor. I think.
Okay, so if I have enough time, let me explain a little bit about how to expand our knowledge in the field. Is it okay?
Okay, okay. I think
Maybe
you can explain in 5 or 10 minutes is also okay.
Okay. Yeah, 5 minutes is enough. Is more than
Okay,
enough.
okay.
Okay.
Please.
So it's just say, sometime we may finish our study. Then the doctor or the researcher may say that I'm a specialist in that field. Say the field is image compression. So, so the reason that I'm saying about image processing technique. So in computer engineering or electrical engineering, there is a field in image processing, which is image compression. So the researcher may finish his thesis on image compression. Then when he graduated from the university, we cannot expect from the researcher that only focus on image compression. Other related area in the field, for example, image enhancement, video tracking, image denoising, and many different techniques in image processing are expected from the author to be able to communicate. In this case, the question is how we can expand our knowledge. The best way is try to be a reviewer for other journals or for other conferences, because we all have a limited knowledge. Indeed, we are in a bubble. We are in a bubble of our knowledge. So trying to critically reading other papers from, say, conferences or journal can help us to expand our knowledge. Every researcher once graduated from school, it has a limited domain of knowledge. So the best way to improve your knowledge is, as I said, referring for other societies, say journal or conference. This is one important issue. And the other important issue is that once you read a paper, you may assume that this is very new, but it is not true. This is a new product, but the product was developed by the author maybe last year or 2 years, because once you finish your research, after you finish the research, you start writing your paper. It takes a few months, and then it may take 1 year the paper be accepted or published by the journal. So that means that if you read a paper from a journal that was published in 2022, it doesn't mean that the idea is very new. If you are looking for a new idea, try to read try to be a referee for a journal or for a conference, because they are the heading, they are the subject that would be published in near future. So we can say that you will be in line to other researchers. So there are two important points to be a referee for other journal or for the other conferences. One is that it can help us to extend our knowledge. And the other important issue about reviewing a paper is that you can read a paper before the paper can be published. And there's another important issue as well. Let me tell you. Sometimes you may wish to do a research, but to doing a research, you need to have a laboratory, you need to have a data, sometimes you need to have a colleague. Once you are referring a paper, you are trying to criticize a paper, the author of the paper have to cooperate with you, have to follow your comment. So that means that he is doing research for you. This is another good important issue in reviewing a paper for conference or specifically for journal. So this is the reason I always try to be a referee for a journal and also for a conference. It helped me a lot. So I recommend you to do the same if you want to be a good researcher in near future, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor, for the tips for reviewer is very important for us.
Yeah, inshallah, if I had another time, I can tell you how to be a good referee. So I told you how is important to be a referee for a journal or for a conference. So there are plenty of benefits to be a referee. But then the other question, how I can be a good referee to a journal or to a conference? If I had another opportunity, inshallah, in near future, I will talk about that.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Maybe we should make another webinar for that topic.
Inshallah.
So we will very grateful to have such as knowledge. Maybe for discussion today, I think enough, Professor. So there is no question, also other question from audience. So for the discussion section and the talk that you provide for us, I had some conclusion that the key in writing paper is that must be structured, and then each section has important point to pay attention. And then Professor Hamid also provide valuable tips, such as how to writing the first person pronunciation. For example, using term I compared to we for the single author, and then how to write the number and so on. And then how we can respond the comment from the reviewer. And the one more, the last thing is how the way we write the paper is most important thing to increase the chance of our paper being accepted. So thank you very much, Professor Hamid, for your time. And then I will return it to Mr. Richie. The time is yours, Mr. Richie.
Thank you, Mr. Anhan. I hope my presentation for the workshop was useful for your research, and hoping to see plenty of research paper from all of you in near future in a reputable journal or in reputable conference. Inshallah.
Amin, inshallah.
Amin, inshallah.
Thank you, Mr. Hanhan, for the moderating our keynote speaker today. To Professor Hamid, allow me to close the presentation. Maybe it's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the opportunity providing me to talk with our colleague at the Unicom University. Thank you to the dean, and also my special thank and regard to the rector of your university. Hopefully to see you again in the future.
Yes, it's a pleasure and honor for us too, Professor. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is very fruitful session, and we hope the attendants enjoy it a lot. However, due to the limiting time, we are going to close this webinar. Thank you for your presence at this webinar. And I represent the committee, so I apologize for any inappropriate word during this webinar. Thank you once again to Prof. Hamid, who has taken the time to provide tips on how to craft research paper. I hope this is useful for all of us, and our paper can be published in reputable journal. We hope we can invite back again in other events that might add to our understanding of writing scientific research paper. Allow me to close this webinar. Thank you. Good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.